Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, March 18th. March Madness is just about here. We got the play-in games, the first four starting tonight. It feels like all of America is rooting for San Diego State after everything that's been going on with UNC and their athletic director on the selection committee getting the Tar Heels into the tournament tonight. Don't have many thoughts on that game. I want to just focus on the South and West regions here in this video and just kind of, go through some tips, trends, picks, all that kind of stuff to help you fill out your bracket. I'm not trying to tell you how to fill out your bracket or who to bet on or anything like that. Just some basic stuff that has helped me here fill out brackets throughout the years and some different looks and stuff like that to consider here before you enter your bracket pools and all that or make any bets or anything like that. So first off, just want to do a little about me. I'm Dan Watkins. I am a sports anchor and reporter for WBZ News Radio in Boston. I have also hosted gambling shows, DFS shows, all that kind of stuff for over 5 years now. So just want to, talk a little bit about some of the stuff here that I have learned working in this space and all that kind of stuff. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with a couple of trends here. So everybody's probably thrown at you the KenPom previous champion trends and all that. So what you want to know when it comes to the KenPom stuff is that the past 96% of the champions since 2001 were top 21 in KenPom offense and top 91% of champions since 2001, top 31 in KenPom defense. So you want to put those two together, and FanDuel did a nice job of collecting this data here. So if you look right here, these are pretty much the teams that are going to win the national title this year or have a realistic shot at it. I mean, no big surprise. You got the 4 number 1 seeds, Auburn, Florida, Duke, Houston, and then you got Tennessee, Wisconsin, Iowa State, and Gonzaga, an 8 seed that might be very underseeded. KenPom absolutely loves the Zags this year. Another one here that you can look at is my buddy Wes Reynolds over at VSiN. He put together a list of top 25 in offensive efficiency and also in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency combined of 50 or less pre-tournament. So as I click over to this screen here, Wes did it right here. Every year for KenPom, Wes tweets out that dating back to 1997, so a really good sample size, with the exception of the 2014 UConn Huskies, which is like the outlier in everything. The eventual national champion had been top 25 in offensive efficiency and combined OE and DE, offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency of 50 or less before the tournament. So it gives you a list of teams here that also fall into that criteria. So we got Florida, Auburn, Duke, Alabama again, Texas Tech, the Zags, Houston, Arizona, Wisco, Tennessee, Iowa State, and Clemson. So a lot of repeat teams there between those two lists. And then one other trend here to keep in mind when filling out your bracket, not going to make the Final Four anyway. I think Sparty's got a legit shot to break this trend. But anyways, let's kind of get into the bracket here. Start looking at some of these teams, some of these regions before you start filling out your bracket here. So as I pull up the bracket, there we go. So let's start in the South region. When this bracket first came out, my first thought here is, can Auburn regain their form? They started off the season 27-2. They lost 3 out of 4 to close things out. This team, they don't always play the smartest, and I think they got a little overconfident towards the end of SEC play. They might have been feeling themselves a little too much, and that probably played into this skid here. We got that loss to Texas A&M at the end of the regular season, but I'm sure Bruce Pearl has spent a lot of time over the past few days really drilling that into his team's head that, doing that, you're not that good kind of thing. You can be beaten, which we've seen. Auburn most certainly can be beaten. They just got knocked out of the SEC tournament and the semifinals. Louisville and Creighton's going to be a fun game. Two teams, Kalkbrenner and Ashworth, those guys, they are on the Creighton side. I mean, they're battle tested. This team went to the Sweet 16 a year ago. This is the very first game on Thursday to tip things off. Great choice there by the TV execs or whoever, ordered these games and stuff like that. This is going to be a fun one right at 12:15 on Thursday. Louisville's also red hot, by the way. They're 21-2 down the stretch. Creighton, as I mentioned, they're battle tested. They're back trying to advance a little farther than they did last year. Moving down to this one, UC San Diego is a very popular upset pick. The Tritons are the best team against the spread in the country. Michigan, meanwhile, they've been a little all over the place. They just won the Big Ten. They rebounded nicely after they had a huge skid to end the regular season in the Big Ten. They play a ton of close games. They don't really separate from anybody. So when you got a UC San Diego team getting what I think it's like, I like the Tritons personally. But Michigan, they just seem to find a way here in these close games. So that's another one to watch. Yale, I think, is going to be another popular upset pick. Buzz Williams, coming up short in this tournament. We've seen that. Yale also knocked off Auburn last year, so a couple kids returning from that team. They know how to win, at least in this first round anyway, and pull off the upsets. What else we got here in this one? Iowa State, guys, you saw them pop up on a couple of those trends lists. With those metrics on KenPom and all that. They are a little banged up. Keyshawn Gilbert's been ruled out for the season. He missed 4 of the 7 final games for the Cyclones down the stretch. They went just 1-3 without him, so they're going to be missing him in this tournament. I think they can still get out of the West region. Lipscomb's going to be a tough out, but I do think that the Cyclones can advance here. Because I still do like them, even if they are a little banged up against an Ole Miss or the winner of that play-in game on Tuesday night. And then finally, we get down here to this bottom little part of the region. Marquette, I don't trust whatsoever. They are not a good shooting team. New Mexico coming in from the Mountain West. I think they're going to give the Golden Eagles a bunch of fits. And then Michigan State, I love the way this bracket in this region looks for Sparty here. They have a really good chance to be that 2 seed that was unranked in the preseason to reach the Final Four. So when it comes to best bets in this region, as I'm looking right now, I get all my picks from my Rhythm model. Rhythm is the place to go for data-driven props and picks. You can download the Rhythm app right now. Get your own picks for free. Go check that out. I'm on a few things here in this region. Let's start off with UC San Diego on the money line. I think the Tritons are going to give the Wolverines everything they could possibly handle. On Thursday, this Michigan team just also had to play a bunch of games on a back-to-back, or I think it was 3 or 4 straight days to go through that Big Ten tournament. I think Michigan is going to fall apart here in the first round. And UC San Diego, best cover team in the country, by the way. I think they're going to move on in advance. So I'm taking them on the money line at plus 125. Nice little plus money payout there. And you can also can tell that the books are somewhat expecting this because a 12 seed getting within a possession, I think the spread's at 2.5 here against Michigan. So, and everybody's going to throw that other trend at you too, that a 12 seed knocks off a 5 seed every single year, it seems like. So I think that's a pretty good one here. Also, I like New Mexico plus 4.5. As I mentioned, Marquette, they're not a good shooting team. So I don't think they're going to be able to separate here from New Mexico. So I'm going to take them at plus 4.5. I'm also going to take the under in that game because, well, Marquette struggles offensively. New Mexico turns the ball over a ton. And 153.5 I think is just way too high here. So I'm taking the under 153.5 in this game as well. And then even though I said a whole bunch of nice things about Michigan State and how much I like Sparty and their chances to advance, I don't think they're going to cover in this first round matchup against Bryant. Bryant can score, and they're going to keep this thing close. I'm going to take him at plus 17.5. My model's got this game at a 14-point spread, so we got over a full possession of value there on Bryant. So that's what I'm doing here in the South region. Those are the 4 best bets. UC San Diego money line, New Mexico plus 4.5. New Mexico Marquette, the under in that game at 153.5, and also Bryant plus 17.5. Now we move on to the West, where Florida just was a buzzsaw through the SEC tournament. They're probably the hottest team in the country right now. They're healthy, no injury concerns at the moment for the Gators. Like I said, they steamrolled through that conference tournament. And also the SEC set the record for the most teams ever in the Big Dance with 14 this year, and Florida just wiped the floor with a lot of them. So the age-old question with the Gators, though, are they peaking too early? We'll find that out, I think, in round 2 when they get the winner of that UConn or Oklahoma game. So talking about UConn here, the 2-time defending champs, they're nothing like the past 2 iterations of the Huskies. This team is very sloppy. They don't really cover big numbers. They don't have the ability to pull away like they have in years past, where UConn could just pretty much like go boa constrictor mode and just strangle you to death in the second half. And these games would just look totally lopsided. I think they have a 12 I believe it's 12 straight games that they've covered in March Madness in the tournament going in here. I believe that's tied for the longest streak of all time. So if they do cover the 4.5 against Oklahoma, it will be they'll set the record for the program with the most straight wins and covers against the spread in March Madness. Oklahoma's been really up and down all year, but they're dancing. They have some big non-conference wins this season, but they just went 7-13 down the stretch, so they're not exactly peaking at the right time here. So I do think UConn's going to be able to get to that second round, and we'll get a really fun Florida-UConn matchup over the weekend. Moving on, Colorado State, a 12 seed, favored over a 5 here. They've won 10 in a row. They take really good shots. They're one of the best passing teams in the country. They rank 8th in the nation in assists. So they're like efficiency darlings. KenPom loves them. Memphis, meanwhile, they've shown this year they can hang around with anybody, but they are a little banged up too. And this is also a step up in competition, taking on this Rams team compared to what Memphis has been facing in the American this season. And as we saw with Memphis in that AAC tournament, they really didn't pull away here. So Colorado ranked 2.5 as a 12 seed over a 5. Moving on, Maryland and Grand Canyon. This game's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of offense. Grand Canyon, we know they play with a ton of pace here. Maryland, meanwhile, if they can get through this Grand Canyon team, I do think they're going to be able to cruise to the Sweet 16. I think they're significantly better than Memphis or Colorado State. But as I was saying, that's going to be put to the test against this Grand Canyon team, who they bring back 4 of 5 starters from that team last year that knocked off St. Mary's in the first round. So they're battle tested. They play good defense. They play at a very fast pace, and they force a ton of turnovers too. So Maryland's going to have their hands full in the first round. But if they can get through that, I do think they're going to be able to keep on dancing to the second weekend. Missouri and Drake's another really interesting game. This game's going to be an absolute crawl. Drake likes to slow this game down. I also tend to fade Missouri when they're away. They have not been good on the road this season. Let me just check my notes here. Yeah, like I said, Drake's one of the best mid-majors in the country. They slow games down to an absolute crawl. They've also been off for 11 days since winning their conference tournament, so that team's going to be very well rested. I think that's going to be prove for a lot of trouble for the Tigers on Thursday night. Texas Tech is another one of those teams that we saw pop up on some of those trends there. Going against UNC Wilmington. All I'm going to say, guys, is when you're filling out the bracket and when you're watching this tournament, look out for Texas Tech. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. They have 3 different guys in their rotation that are shooting at least 40% from deep. And as always, with the Red Raiders, they play really, really good defense. Now, this bottom quartet here, these games are going to be in Providence on Thursday and Saturday. I mean, the coaches and the coaching matchups we have here. We got Bill Self from Kansas. We got John Calipari at Arkansas. Rick Pitino. All those guys are going to be in Providence. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Cannot wait to watch and see how this little part of this region plays out. But St. John's is the best defensive team in the country, according to KenPom. And you know Rick Pitino is ready to take the Johnnies on a deep run. And then when it comes to Kansas and Arkansas, these are both really flawed teams this year. Arkansas is really banged up. They're missing 2 of their best players. The Jayhawks have been a nightmare to bet on this season. They lost games at home that they typically don't lose. They were losing on the road too. So I really don't want any part of either one of these teams going on a deep run, but I still think that'll be a great matchup on Thursday night in the first round. So when it comes to best bets here for this region, first thing I bet on, I believe in this tournament, was the over in this Maryland Grand Canyon game. 2 high-powered offenses. I got it at over 149.5. I think it's at 150.5 now. High-powered offense, really quick pace. I think we're going to see a high-scoring matchup here between these 2 teams. I am going to lay the 4.5 with UConn. My model's got this game at an 8-point spread. Like I mentioned, Oklahoma's kind of faded down the stretch here, 7-13 in their last 20 games. But I like the Huskies to lay the 4.5. I think they cover and move on, and we get that matchup against Florida. Speaking of Florida, I'm going with their team total over 90.5 here against Norfolk State. This is the best offense in the country that is also top 10 in offensive rebounding. against one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the nation. This thing is going to be ugly. It's going to get ugly really quick. Florida's going to do whatever they want, as they should, being a 1 seed taking on a 16. Florida, I think, is going to break triple digits in this one on Friday night. So let's go Florida team total over 90.5. And then also, I do like Arkansas to cover here. Calipari was covering in the SEC tournament against some much better teams, as he was also undermanned as well. As I mentioned, they're missing 2 of their best players. I think they're going to hang around here with Kansas on Thursday night. And then finally, I'm going to take the 6.5 with Drake. Excuse me. Let me just get a sip of water here. All right, much better. Yeah, Drake plus 6.5. The model's got this at 2.5. So you're getting over a full possession of value again with Drake. So those are my best bets here for this region. It's over in the Maryland Grand Canyon game. UConn minus 4.5. Florida team total over. Arkansas plus 4.5. And Drake plus 6.5. All right, so I'm going to come back tomorrow, and we're going to do this with the other side. We got the East and the Midwest to still talk about. I got to talk about Duke and Cooper Flag. I'll give my official Final Four picks as well. Thank you very much for watching. If you could do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, I'm going to try to keep doing this a few times a week here, looking at different betting angles and stuff like that for multiple different sports, but obviously just focused on March Madness right now.